Welcome to the Parent Ed podcast by Focus on the Family Singapore. Family life can be crazy and chaotic, so join us as we figure it out together.
Hello and welcome to the Parent Ed podcast. My name is EJ and I am your host for this episode. In each episode of the Parent Ed podcast, we will be tackling questions that parents are asking about family life, parenting, marriage, work life, and more. We will be speaking with everyday parents and practitioners as they share with us their experience and practical ideas. We hope that you will keep tuning in to learn with us and to grow personally in your journey as parents. Many parents today feel unsure about giving their children access to devices, as they are concerned that it will foster dependence on devices or even lead to addictive behaviors. However, time is so difficult to fork out. We all want to have more time, but we are all so challenged because we are busy. And many times as parents, we got to admit, we also want to have time and our own space to do our own things. So it's really convenient and it's really so easy to just hand over the device to our children and let them have their own time, and we can have our own time too. How can we strike a balance between allowing our children to explore the digital world and ensuring their online safety? Also, how do we ensure they keep to the boundaries that we have asked of them or we have set for them? In today's episode of the Parent Ed podcast, we are so glad to have Melody with us to chat with us about how we can create a safe and fun digital environment for our children.
Hi.
Welcome, Melody. Welcome to our Parent Ed podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's so good to have you. So let's start off, and we really want to know more about you. And so would you like to share with us more about yourself, your family, and what you've been up to daily?
Sure. I'm Melody. I'm a mother to two young ones. My eldest is a 7-year-old P1 girl, and I have a 3-year-old and one boy. I was actually a stay-home mom for many years before taking on a hobby of writing my thoughts and sharing about motherhood on social media. Somehow that has opened up some content creation opportunities, so I'm very grateful for that. And I currently work part-time for a local faith-based company doing content marketing and events. This year is actually my 9th anniversary married to my husband. And a cute fact is that he was my first and only boyfriend, and we are still growing our marriage day by day.
Thank you so much for telling us a little bit more about yourself and your family. Now, it's really interesting because you are a mother of two young children who are probably stepping into this digital world. And of course, you probably have your ways on how you manage their usage. So maybe tell us a little bit more, Melody, on the home front. How do you manage screen time and its usages, with your children?
I mean, first of all, we want to share. We are not any experts, and we're not coming from a place where things are perfect. We still struggle here and there, but I think what we've learned, we are happy to share with others, and hopefully, people can pick up on anything that will help them. So when it comes to screen time management at home, we're more of a middle ground kind of family. We believe that screen time is a privilege and it's not a right, but we also don't want to put it too much on a pedestal. Then kids keep only wanting screen time. So it's good to have a balance and help them see that screen time is just one way to grow, have fun, to relax. So for our young kids, I feel that screen time usage can be broken down into two segments. We've got TV programs and then we have mobile use. So at the moment, we allow the kids about an hour of TV time a day, usually in the form of short 20-ish minute programs like from Netflix or Disney Plus. And then we close with maybe another short program like Bluey that's like 8 minutes, that kind of thing. So not more than 1 hour a day is what we strive for. And for mobile use, at the moment they don't have regular use. I know it's so difficult, but thankfully we have limited use at the moment of viewing pictures. We use mobile for like video calls. There's an occasional phone game that they use on my phone, but they only get all these like in short snippets. Not more than 30 minutes at a go when we are like on the move, when we're outside, things like that.
Wow, I really like it when you shared that in exposing the digital world or screen time for our children, you actually position it that it's not on the pedestal, but it's like one of the many fun things that they can be doing. So while screen time, TV time is one of the ways of leisure, entertainment, there are many other things like going outdoors and having fun time together, doing other exercises, crafts, sports as well, right?
Exactly. I think, don't get me wrong, we've definitely had our instances where we use TV as a babysitter. But as much as possible, I think when it comes to screen time, we try to make sure that we check in on the type of shows and the content that they're watching. We try to watch it with them sometimes. We ask questions along the way to help them process what's going on or who are the characters. And I find that this joint media engagement actually helps them to really know what they're watching and not just like a mindless thing, you know? Yeah, and like you mentioned, we also want to balance screen time with non-screen activities. So sometimes even after they watch their show, we might say, okay, we can draw, we can play, you know, with the toys to remember what we have watched. We can do craft out of fun programs that you like and things like that. Yeah.
It sounds like you're extending the fun and the entertainment that they caught from it and making it relevant to drawings, craft,
exactly.
you know. So extending the life beyond just that TV show or that screen activity as well. And I can see that you really put in a lot of intention behind it. We know it's not easy. You talked earlier about the quality of the shows you allow your children to watch. Could you expound a little bit more on that? Because there's so much different kinds of shows our kids are exposed to right now. What is considered healthy or so-called good quality shows?
Yeah, so for us, good quality TV programs would have positive messaging about relationships, family life. We want to avoid things that are like having bad attitudes or avoid violence. So an example that I want to give is, you know, this popular show Peppa Pig, right? Everyone knows that. And when you have young children, everybody's watching Peppa Pig. When my daughter was young, before she turned 5, I realized that she was picking up some phrases after she watched Peppa Pig in quite a rude manner. It wasn't a very good thing. Then from watching the show with her and even talking to others, we realized that even this popular TV series can be quite rude sometimes. You know, the daughter might seem quite bratty, or in just the way that she speaks to her father, sometimes it's a bit rude in the show. So we decided, okay, you know, if my daughter is picking up on these bad phrases, then we have to cut it off in a good way. So I decided, okay, on Netflix, you know, hey, we can watch it in Chinese instead. So let's turn to watch it in Mandarin. And somehow in Mandarin, it's not rude and it's also quite funny, it's quite cute. So I realized, I can kill two birds with one stone, get her to watch in Mandarin and not pick up on the bad attitudes. And I found that to be very helpful. If we were not watching with her and if I wasn't intentional in picking up on these things, then we might have slipped on that. Yeah, but I think watching the content with your children makes a difference. Yeah. And also I think I've already mentioned, even after letting them watch TV that they like, we try to inspire off-screen play, reading of books. So they like Peppa Pig. We don't watch it in English now, but we can read it in English. They like Paw Patrol. I think all kids with young kids would know Paw Patrol. They can play the toys that we have gotten for them. Then we can do craft, we can do coloring out of that. Yeah, and just to teach them coming up with good stories that involve characters that are of good morals as well. So when it comes to TV programs, I also think they must be age appropriate. The stories, the themes should not be too mature, not too complex, and it should not be something that's too overstimulating that they get bad dreams from and things like that.
Wow, really a lot of effort put in because we want to set the stage well for our children to be consuming content that is helpful, healthy for them in their growing years as well. So I really like it that Melody, when you approach this topic, you're not of the stand where like we should ban everything and all screens and all these are bad, you know, but there are good stuff. There are good things that we can harness and utilize even from technology itself, you know, screens and the shows itself. You mentioned a lot also about co-viewing, engagement with your children while they are on the shows. We're going to come to that later, but we're going to talk about boundaries now because before you enter this digital game, this world that they're into, we do have to set some boundaries so that they play well in this digital world that they're in. Tell us a little bit more. What are possibly some effective ways we can teach our children about maybe responsible online behaviors, how to differentiate between what's safe, what's not?
Maybe when it comes to online behavior, for us, you know, we can first define how we see it. There's that first part of, you know, games that are static, you know, those type of games where you kind of are playing on your own. That's quite straightforward. You know, when we talk about these, we try to make sure that we have limited amount of time when we let them play, not for too long. For our young ones, we try to keep it below 30 minutes, but maybe those who are older, you must know your own child, maybe they can play for a little bit longer. The other part of it is the online games and social media where there is interaction with even potential strangers. And I feel that those situations are a little bit different because they can be very tricky and it opens up a lot of a bigger world to our children. So I feel children need to have age-appropriate boundaries. I heard this quote online before, so I'm not going to credit it to myself, but I believe that if my child's one trauma growing up is that mom and dad were too strict, then I'm really fine with that. I would rather they know that we are strict and we love them rather than they experience pitfalls and something goes wrong too fast. If there's any trauma caused, it will be too late to turn back. I want to encourage parents as well. We do not have to be afraid to offend our children. I know many of us are tired physically and mentally sometimes. So it's really easier to just give them an online game that they can play for hours. But I think we need to realize that what might be a moment of relief can actually be a very difficult journey ahead. So if we weigh out boundaries, that kind of conversations we need to have earlier, it will be worth it.
So you mentioned conversations. How important are conversations and how do you have those conversations with your children?
So for my kids, because they're still young, we're talking about 3-year-old and 7-year-old, it's like I see it as, when you go to a new place or you go to a playground, for example, you usually give them some ground rules. Like, okay, we are here for how long? You should be kind and practice good behavior with other people. So I think it's the same. When it comes to the online digital space, we need to have that same kind of conversations with them. So we talk to them about how long they get to use the device for, and we will let them know as well that they should not be talking to strangers. Digital safety is very important. They should not be exposing their personal information on the online space. Slowly, my daughter is starting to realize more and more of this. So as she sees what we do as well, then she's picking up and learning that way.
So setting ourselves up for conversations, and you rightfully mentioned there will be rules that we have to share with them as they enter this digital playground. Tell us a bit more at home. Do you have specific rules that implement with your kids, And just to highlight for all the listeners that every house has its own fair share of house rules. So what Melody is going to share is for us to ponder, to think about how we can, consider for our own homes too, not to exactly utilize the same one. Right. So Melody, what are some house rules you have?
So for us, in terms of mobile usage and screen rules, they are kind of the same to us. So we keep to certain time limits where, since my children are young, we try to keep it within an hour usage per day. This is total screen usage, whether it's mobile or TV and things like that. But of course, I know that those who are older would be allowed to use it for a longer period. We also believe in the homework first policy. So we tell them that, okay, if you have homework, you should be doing it first before you get to watch your TV. We've talked with our friends before as well. After children watch their TV time, they just want to relax. They don't want to get work done anymore. Most of the time, they are not in that frame, of mind. So we rather tell them, okay, work hard first, and then later on you can have your screen time. You can relax. Even for my young kid who's only 3-year-old, we try to encourage him, okay, if you're playing your toys, pack up first. Have some reading time, some coloring time, off-screen things before you do your screen time. And of course, we believe in parental supervision over all kinds of screen time. So whatever TV program they're watching or mobile use, we want to know what they are using, what they're doing. And when there's online privacy coming up into play, we will tell them, okay, no offering of any kind of personal information, like what I mentioned. So if needed, our house rules are also that we would lock our own devices so that it's not just lying around. They will not get to use it sneakily, without our supervision. And we also do not allow them to download any games or software without asking us first. So these are just some things that we kind of practice that has been helpful for us. And in time to come, when there's more exposure, I believe we need to have new conversations, teaching them to guard against things like cyberbullying, harassment, and making sure that they do not engage with strangers online, because that is so real, right, for children these days.
Melody, you're really right to say that the conversation must not cease. It has to keep going. I think this is a really big encouragement and a nudge for some of us parents. Keep the conversations alive. Even sometimes if we do not understand because this digital world is evolving, become more complex. So we need to keep up to date, up to speed with all these digital trends that our children are into. And sometimes just for the sake of really keeping the convos, going on with our children, we don't lose touch as well. I'm curious, when we talk a lot about setting examples for our children, being there, co-viewing with them, and then having conversations, all these require us to be present with them. Time is of the essence. Right? We only have 24/7, the kind of hours and days. How do you view this? Tell us a little bit more about what does it mean to be present with your kids, especially talking about the challenges that this digital world that they're facing.
So I think for us at home, being present with our children isn't just about the screen time part. I believe that when we choose to be present with our kids, we need to look at it as their whole lives. We want to be curious about how they're doing in school, about how they're socializing with their friends. And I believe that then it extends into the screen time part. When they know that we love them, and wholly love them for who they are, then we can have the right conversations that say, because Papa and Mama love you, therefore, we cannot let you watch too much. We cannot let you do this at the moment. So it's, we love you, and therefore, we cannot do too much of this, or we can't let you watch this current show at the moment. One interesting story that I have is recently my daughter doesn't have her own device, but she sits on the school bus where she interacts with older kids about P5. She came back asking me about this trending song that her friends were singing. And it's a song that, it's called Cupid. I'm not sure if you know it, but it's a trending song that if you're on Instagram, if you're on TikTok, you probably would have heard it. So even though my daughter doesn't have social media, she heard it first from her friends. And she asked me about it, and I decided that in choosing to be present with her, I want her to tell me these stories. I want her to know she can come to me to ask about anything. So I played the song. I went to show her what is this song, what is the dance that the friends were doing, and I wanted her to know that when she has any questions, she can come to always find the answers with me. And if I didn't know, we will find out together. So I feel that while they are young, these are the things that we can do to stay curious and learn together. And I hope that growing up, she will feel even, when the time is right to have her own mobile device, she will still want to involve me in the interactions. So rather than just saying, oh, no, I'm not going to let you listen to any of these songs, I choose to say, okay, let's look at it together.
It's so true, right? When they are young, when we set the stage for them, having this foundation with them where they can come to us in the daily, in the seemingly small things. As they grow up and they are familiarized with this culture that they have with the parents, as they grow older, maybe they face with bigger challenges, friendship issues, school issues, or whatsoever, they'll be more willing, more open to come and share with the parents. It starts from young. It's so true. And I like it that you yourself has to probably be familiar, again, being intentional to keep yourself updated with some of these latest trends. It's so important today that while we talk about protecting our children, safeguarding them, it's not to the other extreme where we want to be so fearful and we just take away all devices. But how can we be more intentional to engage, to know more about their world so that we can better relate, we can better connect, and then we can better guide them. So as we talk about this part, do you see parents' role right now as like a guide?
Definitely. I think that through exploring together and always staying curious, rather than critical, we can become a trustworthy guide to our kids. And it's not possible to be there with them 24/7. If we choose to be present in these early years, then there is that extension next time. Even when we are not with them, the voice that we carry, whatever we have already said to them will be what they can carry on with them on their own. And there will definitely be that online space where they have to learn to navigate by themselves. So I hope that they always know that they can pick up the right skills from us first. And we need to be the ones who model that good behavior. Like I said, we are still learning, we are still struggling here and there. We also need to practice. Sometimes it's a heavy burden, right? Choosing to say, okay, I practice having good, healthy technology habits, like putting away my phone when the time is right, when we're having a meal, giving them undivided attention so that they would pick up the same things as well. We are not just there to be their parents, but we are here to be their teachers as well. And I believe that when they learn that from us, then they don't need to learn it from elsewhere.
These are such great nuggets of wisdom as we hear from Melody, and I hope those who are tuning into the Parent Podcast, you're benefiting from this as well too. Melody, I'm going to take a slight turn in the next question, and I'm going to ask you a favorite question that many of parents who I engage with in my parenting workshops, they always ask me about this question. I'm going to pose it to you. Parental control apps. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think we can really rely on these parental control apps? Is it helpful, useful? What are your thoughts?
Because my children are still young, 3 and 7, so the current way that we use parental control apps is really on the phone itself, making sure that they do not hop into strange apps while they are using the phone. So things like guided access on the iPhone, that really helps. But that's still very basic functions, using the phone to make sure that they don't use it for too long. You can set like certain limits on the phone and things like that. But I feel that if they start navigating into the online space a little bit more, then there are certain parental control apps that have to be put into place to help guard off, certain things like even basic searches that you don't want them to look at other content that's not age appropriate. I really had a friend who told me that the son was just, researching on science topics, right? Like maybe body parts or something like that. But unfortunately, certain content came up on the internet that was not age appropriate. So definitely parental control apps would help to deflect such things. But of course, I think we cannot rely on parental control apps alone. I feel that this is just using technology to help. In fact, when kids are older, they might even work their way around these kind of apps. They might be smarter than, ourselves. They know how to turn it off or block it. And I understand that the apps are only there to kind of track. But if we don't monitor, they can still be talking to strangers and you wouldn't even know. So I think this is where it comes back to what we were talking about earlier. If we are present with our children, then we will have the access into their lives to talk about all of their life. And hopefully, when it comes to the online space, that is one area that they will still share with us, that we can still be part of their lives in that space.
It's so true, because the effectiveness of the parental control apps, probably there's a limitation. It probably works well for children who is younger, and especially when they're just starting their foot out on digital devices. I think it's really important to put those in place. But the apps don't work forever. They don't work, in a sense, quote unquote, anymore when the kids grow older. So what do you recommend, when the kids have outgrown these parental control app?
I think by that time, we should definitely have taught them about digital safety and letting them know that they need to practice certain boundaries. Like we said, knowing by that time when to cut off their own online behavior, making sure that if it's a school night, they're not using it beyond a certain time, making sure they're not talking to strangers. I think all these things are what we need to teach them before it gets too late. So having the conversation, even while they're young, is very important. Teaching them that, it's not some Western issues only, but really even right in our own home ground, children are being targeted, being groomed online, and things like that. And it can be very scary if parents are not watching over their children's online behavior.
I think we have really benefited today in this podcast episode, hearing from these really wonderful, helpful tips from Melody. I just really want to thank you so much for sharing your personal journey, your experience, your learnings with us. And like you said earlier, you are not an expert. You are also on that learning journey yourself too, as your child grows up, right? And I think that's the same for all of us tuning in and listening to a Parent Podcast. We want to build a community where we are listening, growing, and developing ourselves to be so-called better parents together. So before we end this episode, Melody, I'd like you to have a final word of encouragement for our listeners.
We are not experts, so I believe that just as everyday parents who are struggling, we can choose to never give up and to prioritize being present with our kids in their lives, and that includes in their technology journey as well. So I believe as parents, we need to take that first step in engaging our children, teaching and modeling to them from a young age. It's never too early to teach them the right online and technology uses and having healthy steps in this area. So I believe also that technology is so powerful and it can be used for good if they have the right skills. So we have to protect our children and teach them the tools that they need from a young age. And may we use technology to even discover that we can bond as a family, to connect with the world, to learn from the best, and that we do not have to fear it, but to see it as truly a powerful tool.
Thank you so much. As we round up this episode, I'm just reminded again that every intentionality that we put behind to have those conversation, to be present for our children, the return on investment, so-called the ROI, is really worthwhile, because starting young, you build that good foundation of relationship with our kids. As they grow older, you will begin to hopefully reap the rewards and the fruits from what you have invested earlier. Was it difficult? Was it sacrificial? Did it take a lot of time? Yes. But the return on investment is definitely worth it. So thank you again, Melody, for your time with us
Thank
on this
you.
episode. And thank you everyone for tuning in to the Parent Podcast. I really hope that through the episode you have gained wisdom, parenting tips. And we do know that, every parent out there, especially when we talk about the digital world, screens and its usages, every parent needs some form of support in raising screen smart families in terms of using technologies for meaningful connections. So if you as a parent, you have a child who's struggling in the area regarding digital usage and issues, at Focus on the Family, our team of coaches and counselors are here and willing to guide and support you in your parenting journey. If you do need help, please head over to family.org.sg/parent coaching for more information, where you can get connected with our experienced coaches and counselors. And if you are looking for more parenting resources, please visit our website at family.org.sg. Feel free to share this podcast with a friend who may need tips on navigating the digital playground with their young children. So be sure to catch us on our next ParentNet podcast. Until next time, have a great week with your family.